I still remember the smell of dust and diesel the morning we left home, the kind that clings to your throat and stays there long after the road disappears behind you. Mama had packed our small bag the night before, folding everything with her hands the way she always did, humming a church song as if the melody would hold the seams together. I was 17 that December, and I had never been anywhere beyond our hills in Olrai village. The farthest I'd ever gone was the market center, 5 kilometers away, where the buses and matatas came and went like restless birds. That morning the air was cold enough to sting my arms, but I didn't want to wear a sweater. I wanted to feel the journey. My sisters, Noni and Tisa, were half asleep on either side of me in the matatu, their heads bumping against the window every time the driver hit a pothole. I remember the man beside me chewing gum so loudly it felt like he was chewing my patience, but I didn't mind. I was going to town. To Lakeside. To Aunt Millie's place, a proper house with electricity, tiled floors, and a television bigger than the black and white we had back home. It took us nearly 5 hours. The matatu stopped in every small trading center, dropping and picking passengers until I lost count. By the time we reached Lakeside, the sun was a coin melting over the roofs, and the whole town smelled like fish, sweat, and heat. My aunt was waiting near the stage in her hotel uniform, a white shirt, black skirt, name tag pinned crookedly on her chest. She looked tired, but her smile stretched wide when she saw us. We squeezed into a tuk-tuk, the kind that rattles as if it's about to fall apart. The streets were alive with music, bongo, Afrobeats, reggae, all blending into one big heartbeat. I couldn't stop looking out the window. The shops had painted signs like Blessed Salon, Ghetto Vibes Wines and Spirits, Nice Time Butchery. It was noisy, too alive, too close. I didn't know if I liked it or feared it. Aunt Millie's house was in a place called Miringa Estate, a quiet area a little far from the main road. The gates were painted blue and there was a jacaranda tree right outside that had dropped so many purple flowers the ground looked like it was wearing a festival dress. Inside the compound there were 2 houses, Aunt Millie's and the neighbors, divided by a short fence made of old iron sheets and passion fruit vines. The neighbor's compound had music playing, Otto Brown's Baby Love, and that's the first time I saw her. Dola. Her real name, I would learn later, was Dola Atino, but everyone called her Dola. Maybe it was because she liked fancy things or maybe she gave herself that name. I didn't know. What I saw that day was a girl about my age, dark-skinned and tall, with braids the color of burnt honey and nails painted sky blue. She was hanging clothes on the line, singing louder than the radio. When she noticed me staring, she smiled, a slow, knowing smile, and said, "New faces around here," before going back to her song. That night I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan kept turning lazily, making a sound like a tired insect. My sisters were already asleep, sprawled on the mattress beside me. I kept thinking about that girl next door, her confidence, the way she didn't seem to care who was watching. Back home, girls didn't talk like that. They didn't look you straight in the eye like she did. The next morning, after breakfast, Aunt Millie left for work. She worked night shifts sometimes, which made her days a blur of short naps and phone calls. She told me to watch over my sisters, to keep the house tidy, and to make sure they didn't go wandering. But by midday, when the heat began to stick to the walls, we ran out of things to do. I sat on the veranda plaiting Noni's hair when I heard someone calling from the fence. It was her again. Dola. She had come with a packet of crisps and that same bold smile. She asked if I wanted to go with her to the shops. I hesitated, glancing at my sisters, but she said, "Just a few minutes. I'll bring you back." That's how it started. We walked to a place called Stage Corner, where the shops and vibandas lined the road like impatient mouths. She knew everyone, the shopkeeper, the fruit seller, the guy selling phone covers. People waved when they saw her. She had that kind of presence that filled the air before her words did. I followed her quietly, feeling like a child and an outsider at the same time. Dollar told me about the estate, who lived where, which border guy was dating which girl, who sold fake perfume and who sold real. She was like a walking newspaper. When we passed a group of boys leaning on motorbikes, she waved at them too, and they whistled back. She didn't even flinch. I tried not to look, but I could feel their eyes crawling over me like warm water. At the supermarket she bought 2 lollipops and handed me one. "You're too quiet," she said. "You from up country, eh?" I nodded. She laughed. "Don't worry. You'll get used to this place. Lakeside people are loud but not bad. Just full of life." She was right. The place was full of life, too much, almost. We spent the rest of the afternoon walking around. She showed me the school she attended, a Lakeside High, not far from the estate, and the small salon where she sometimes helped out during weekends. We bought roasted maize by the roadside and shared it, talking about school and music and silly things like who we thought was the most handsome actor in the country. By the time I got back home, the sun had already dipped behind the hills and the air smelled of fried fish and paraffin. My sisters were sitting outside, worried and hungry. I apologized, made them tea, and promised not to go out again without telling them. But the next day, I found myself by the fence again, waiting for Dollar's voice. The days began to slide into each other. Every morning, after helping Aunt Millie with chores or watching over my sisters, I would sneak to the fence. Dollar would always have something planned, sometimes going to town, sometimes to her friends' places. She introduced me to her circle, Triza, who worked at a cyber cafe and had the sharpest tongue I'd ever had, Wambo, who always had earphones in and smelled like vanilla, and Jemo, one of Dollar's boyfriends, who owned a small motorbike and liked showing off. Dollar had other boyfriends too. I didn't even know how she managed to keep track. There was one called Brian, another called Moha, and a few more whose names I only had in passing. I couldn't understand how she did it, how she could talk to one on the phone, laugh with another in person, and still claim to be in love. She talked about them like they were chapters in a book, all overlapping but none too serious. I'd never had a boyfriend before. Boys back home mostly saw me as the girl who always carried books, or Mziki Beat's daughter. I didn't even know what being in love meant beyond the things I'd read in magazines. But Dollar lived it, or something like it. She liked taking pictures. Sometimes she'd borrow her cousin's phone and we'd take selfies by the jacaranda tree or near the lake road where the sunset made everything golden. She'd post them and get likes from people I'd never met. Once, she showed me a comment from a boy saying, "You're the hottest girl in Miringa." She giggled and said, "See. You hung with me long enough, they'll say that about you too." I didn't know whether that was a good thing or a warning. One afternoon, a few days before New Year's, she came over looking unusually excited. She said one of her boyfriends, the one called Brian, who lived in a nearby estate, wanted to propose to her. I almost laughed. Propose? Like marriage? She nodded seriously, twisting her hair. Yes, I think so. He said he wants to make it official before the year ends. I didn't know what to say. We were still in high school. She was 16, maybe 17. Marriage sounded like something adults whispered about, not something you planned between school breaks.